Hello, and welcome back to another episode of The Smith and the Knight. It is a story I am working on, and I thought I would read it for you, um, the audience. It is a story set in Sanctuary, a mythical land where anything is possible. Now, I'm going to go ahead and get started here, and hopefully my throat does not get too dry while I'm reading this. This part should be fairly lengthy, so if you'll bear with me, let's go ahead and get started. Gellerherter worked with a start. Dawn had approached from beyond the massive walls in the distance, reaching down from the land to bless the denizens with its delightful touch. The page had heard the sound of bells in the distance and the clanging of steel. He turned to his master, who was already awake and staring out of the nearby window. "We should start a training session soon. I believe Eisner wanted to see us." Stolzer glanced over his shoulder. He called this research. "We should get moving. He doesn't use that term often." The page heard the door to the forge open and shut. In a few moments, the master smith and his apprentice met him with tired eyes. "Come, mime. I do not have all morning, and neither do you." He motioned for them to head out the back door. Gellerherter nodded and followed his master out into the open yard. The yard had seen much use, as the dummies and the practice equipment there seemed well maintained. Several dummies and spaces were marked for dueling and practicing with a lance. Anna reached for a sheathed short sword. She nodded to the page and extended it out to him. He caught her gaze, a bright pair of shining emeralds. The sword she held was kept in a beautifully crafted scabbard of crimson leather. Brass had been fastened to the tip and near the handguard. A strap had been tied to the sides. Gellerherter took the weapon from her and turned away shyly. Eisner scoffed. "Let's get started, lad." Stolzer motioned for him to face him. "Now, remember how duels begin?" Gellerherter approached his master, shaking his head. First, he bowed to the page. The page returned the bow. Then, a prayer. The knight pressed his hands together. "O Lord, bless this conflict. Ensure no harm comes to those who uphold your holy word. May the victor grant wisdom to the living." Stolzer and Gellerherter both drew their weapons. The page lunged forward for a thrust, and his blade was turned aside with a deft parry. Gellerherter was struck on his shield arm, and Stolzer whirled about. "Keep your weapon close to you. Ensure I can't read your movements." The knight slapped him again with the blunt of his weapon. Gellerherter held his short sword in both hands, attempting to read his master's movements. His eyes focused onto his shoulders, but when his master lunged, his body couldn't react. He barely dodged another blunted blow, and narrowly his blade deflected another. "Going easy on him. I see they've certainly been training." Eisner stroked his beard in contemplation. "But the lad has a long way to go." Anna bit her lip in anticipation and winced as he was struck again. The blows seemed to be soft. Master," Gellerherter grimaced and clutched his side. You're holding back on me." "You saw my foes last night. If I give you my full swing, we wouldn't be training for a while." Stolzer answered matter-of-factually. He lunged and missed his page's arm purposefully to tap his shoulder with the tip. "Boy, listen well. Your master there is a killer, well versed in the language of death. Take what you learn from him to heart. For now you are small, but as you grow, his blows will not be so gentle." The master smith crossed his arms and fixed his gaze onto the page. "So far I have seen naught of your skill. You blindly swing. The weapon is trying to speak through you, and he is trying to teach you the words. Listen well, for there will come a time when your master will be unable to protect even you." Gellerherter growled under his breath. He swung wide, nearly losing his balance. Quickly he unfastened the scabbard from his side and unblocked an incoming blunted blow. A flurry of blows only met air, and he took another blow square in the center of his back. Incapacitating or killing areas. His thoughts betrayed him and he felt more stinging pain. Master fights me as if I were an enemy, though we are training. Bells from the citadel chimed. Hold on, I'm going to fix this really quick. Bells from the citadel chimed and distracted his master for an instant. He held his hand out to stop the boy mid-swing. He frowned and turned to Eisner. Those are council bells. We have to hurry to the citadel. Stolzer sheathed his blade and turned to his page. Or rather, I have to. I'm afraid I'm not allowed to bring my page to the meeting with me. Eisner grunted. Too weak for Smith's work. He will remain here and practice. The knight matted his fair hair and knelt in front of him. His page had been struck many times during their duel. His forearms, the top of his hand, the center of his back, his shield and sword arm, and his right cheek. You did well. Gellerherter beamed. Stolzer strode past Anno and whispered something in the Mastersmith's ear. The old man nodded and shook his head. Anna strode over to him and held out her hand. I need my weapon back. Eisner then raised his eyebrow. What? You borrowed it. I made it, so it's mine. She defiantly motioned again. You may have it when you can beat your master. Gellerherter sighed and sheathed the short sword. He handed it over to her reluctantly. Girl after my own heart. Eisner attempted to contain his happiness and followed Stolzer back into the smithy. You'll probably be sent to the front lines for a time, you know, the Mastersmith grimaced. I will let you know when I know something. He'll be coming with me then. Eisner crossed his arms and motioned for him to follow once more. He reached underneath the forge, retrieving a completed piece. The longsword shone brilliantly in the morning light pouring through the windows. Runes were etched along the edge, the hilt and guard seeming to be woven like ivy. Eisner sheathed the blade and held it aloft for the knight. That rusted hunk of steel needs to be repaired. The Mastersmith's lie was too heavy to be ignored. I can't accept this. Stolzer looked away. Your master wanted you to have this when you were ready. Our master, you mean. Take it. I cannot. You will take it! No, I can't. Take the damn sword, Stolzer. Eisner forced the weapon into his hands. I can't keep this forever, and I have no use for it. Stolzer sighed, and he returned his old broadsword. The guard had been cracked, and from the last fight, it had chipped in several places. You fight like you're afraid to kill. You can't teach him if you're afraid to break him, you know this. He pulled on a switch for the bellows, life returning to the forge. Hurry, or she will come for you. Will you train him? That is not my place. I have a business to keep, and so do you. Eisner rested his paws on the nearby anvil after he placed a length of steel into the blaze. I have the art, and you have the art of war. Let's both keep to our calling. Aye, you're right. I'll return shortly. Keep him safe, old friend. Stolzer headed for the door and heard the familiar ringing of the hammer. All rise. The hooded figure stood upright. Their throne behind them was situated higher than any other seat in the chamber. The council meeting is now in session. Concerns and other new issues are to be brought to light. If you have a concern, please state it now. Otherwise, we will move to other issues which have been presented to me this morning from my Knight Undying. The Sandrine Overlord is awfully grumpy this morning. Stolzer fidgeted uneasily. I grew grumpy too if my turrets fired in the dead of night. There was a moment of silence. The Sandrine Overlord removed their hood. A woman of pale skin, blonde hair, and a piercing icy eyes peered into the crowd. Their darkened robes bore the blessed star of sanctuary, the winged emblem, which rested on her breast. Her shoulders bore scarlet sunflowers, the symbols of her sacrifice and dedication. From her waist, the coat separated and revealed her heavy plate boots which covered her shins and feet. She had a thin saber at her side. the delicate weapon worn from use. Her forearms were protected by a pair of highly decorated bracers, the symbols of all the other ranks of Sanctuary's military glistening despite the dim light. There were no public concerns. We shall move to a more pressing matter at hand. Stolzer Ritter, please rise and present yourself to me. The Sandrian Overlord's command forced him to rise and take his seat. Take his place in the center of the arena. As he knelt before her, his armor activated itself and stitched itself over his clothes. Tell me why our defense matrices fired near the hour of midnight. I was visiting my old friend and ordered my page to stable the horses. He didn't return in a timely manner, and I encountered vampires at the nearby tavern. I suspect they were all in league with one another, for they sought to use my page against me. Stolzer's gaze met the Sandrian Overlord's. She squinted, but remained silent. Ovelia, what is your edict? The Knight Undying spoke now. His uniform was similar to the Overlord's, however, it bore no rankings on his forearms. He wielded a formidable Zweihander, which rested against his seat. How many? She's gathering intelligence now. I suppose that's a good and a bad sign. I counted about 6 in the tavern, not including the staff. The night was too dark for me to take any more stock of them. You are unhurt? Aye, thank you for your concern, my overlord. Stolzer lowered his head. And your page? Where are they? He is with my old friend. Pages are not to accompany their masters when a meeting is called, my overlord. So I followed procedure. Procedure for Justicar's pupils who are involved are to be brought in for investigation, Stolzer. The Knight Undying reminded him. He is young, my lord. Forgive me. I did not want him involved. Do not beg forgiveness, Justicar, Ovelia growled. You forget your position. He is involved when you are. For this instance, we shall overlook this. But you were required to bring him. The damage was not enough to be spoken of, and all establishments were abandoned, thankfully. Eyesores, no more, no less. Stolzer, you are to scout the western district. The far reaches house more of their ilk. You are to eradicate them with Alphonse, my Knight Undying. This mission is not to be taken lightly, for you both will only take your pupils with you. Alphonse, Stolzer, you are to begin immediately. That is all for you two. You are both dismissed. Other matters will now be taken from the council. I move for a full inventory of our ammunition and for the defense matrices to be calibrated before nightfall. Ovelia immediately waved the two away. Others joined the discussion as they addressed the Sandrian Overlord. Alphonse took a moment to whisper in her ear and hand her a folder. She nodded and waved him away. In a few short moments, Stolzer caught his breath in the hallway. He shook his head and wiped his forehead clean of sweat. Christ, what an intense woman. He blinked and found a handkerchief held out to him. Alphonse's piercing blue eyes met his for an instant, and he mouthed a thanks. The Knight Undying had ruffled his hair, and the pair released the protective spell, their armor dissipating. You sure have a way with words, friend. Alphonse smiled, and then Justicar rolled his eyes. Are you aware of the trouble you're in? Don't remind me. Missions like these are tests. I know the procedure. He sighed. You're harsh enough as it is. Indeed. I do wish for you to meet someone, though. He smiled and motioned for Stolzer to follow. The other man reluctantly obeyed, following him deeper into the citadel. All around them, individuals were hurrying or walking in pairs, hushed words echoing against the ancient walls. Torch sconces were lit with care, and the strange flames released no smoke. He found himself beyond the massive metallic doors, which led into a small, quaint chamber. Above a fireplace hung the image of the first Mortem, Ornald. His white hair was cut short, and his inquisitive, piercing ocean hues seemed to peer down at him. A meeting area composed of 2 couches and a coffee table were situated in the center of the room, his eyes taking in the luxuries within. he spotted volumes and old tomes scattered about, soaring overhead. Small entrances opened and closed for the books to come and go. Have a seat. Ovelia wishes to have further words with you. She will be along shortly. Alphonse then left him to retrieve his place. The armaments along the walls fascinated him more than anything. He was mesmerized by the myriad of ancient tools which once were created by a smith of a lost age, only now to be shown as artifacts. Pronged spears, strange pipes with holes in them. Stolzer blinked as a book and a coffee cup appeared in front of him, with metallic doors opening wide. The intensity of the woman caused him to immediately close himself and prepare defenses. She merely took her seat in front of him, her piercing gaze softening in the instant the doors shut and locked themselves. I had him drag you here because I felt you needed some congratulations. Those buggers had us scrambling for quite some time, and testing the defense matrices at the same time was quite smart of you. Her praise came to him like another language. However, we're stuck. The mission I've signed you is dangerous, but it does need further information. Alphonse took his place near his Sandrine overlord. He heard the padding of tiny feet and laughter. Stolzer turned to find a little girl rushing in. Her rosy hair and stark ocean blue eyes reminded him of the Mortem traits. Piercing blue eyes like a raging ocean, but the pink hair caused him to raise an eyebrow. She laughed and accidentally deactivated Ovelia's protective spell. She blinked in surprise as a similar outfit was revealed underneath and turned immediately then to Stolzer. Mommy, who is this? His name is Stolzer. Stolzer, this is Arden. The knight recognized her immediately. She was not a full-blooded Mortem. She had somehow been produced from another lesser. How is that even possible? Mortem can't breed with others very well and are unable to breed with themselves. Then how is this young girl here? Clan in her natural aura didn't command authority, at least not immediately. Hello, young one, he smiled warmly. The girl returned the smile and clung to Ovelia. You were to recover several items lost to us during the earlier conflict. Alphonse retrieved a pair of sketches and other papers. He lined them up in front of the Justicar. One of the sketches which demanded his attention was a simple cube. The box in question seemed to radiate an aura of foreboding, the cube hiding a more sinister purpose. He looked away and peered at the other reports instead. What you see is a sketch of a soul cube. This device was created many aeons ago, and it is capable of taking souls of the living. Its purpose is unknown, and we would like to have it returned to our custody for further analysis. However, the soul cube is now left empty when it is transported. Someone must have had loose lips, Stolzer commented. I'm a Justicar. Why choose me for this mission? You fight like a man afraid to kill. We need to capture whoever did this alive. I killed 4 vampires last night with holy magic, he commented. Did you wish to kill them? No, If you had any ill intent, the defense matrices would have spotted you. As a Justicar, you must fight as if you are afraid for those who meet you in combat. Ovelia sighed heavily. The little girl had fallen asleep next to her and drooled. Then why have it in the first place? We're living like cattle. Alphonse raised his hand. Your page. I hear you were taking to him well. I suppose it's safe to talk to him. To talk of him. Yes, he is quick to learn. He imbued magic last night fairly well. His reflexes are slow, however. I will have to meet him. Ovelia fixed her gaze onto him, and he nearly leaped from his skin. Today. Ma'am, surely another time will suffice. Get me a change of clothes, Alphonse, and return Arden to her quarters. I must speak with the Stolzer in private. Ovelia's command was met with obedience. Her aura of authority returned for an instant before she then settled again. The silence between them was only broken by the sipping of her coffee. She seemed to be waiting for him to speak, but he refused to budge. The hell is taking him so? My lady, I have a set of clothing ready. We will depart shortly. Allow me to escort myself this time, Alphonse. I can't have sanctuarians believe I'm unable to take myself anywhere. Nonsense. I have ordered a band of soldiers to join us. The very best. I am the very best. They are less best. She corrected him playfully and headed into her chambers. If I may, Al. Al? Yes, Al. Is she always this way? Stelzer brushed himself off and avoided his gaze. You learn to adore it, one way or another, Alphonse chuckled. Ah, right. I forget they're married. All right. Thank you so much for listening. This is all that I have prepared for right now. Further parts will come out as available, as I am available, rather. And I thank you so much for, again, listening. I hope that you enjoyed this part of The Smith in the Night. And I will read more for you very soon. Thank you so much.